Welcome to Getting the Message Out. This session is sponsored by Towns, Rabun, and Union County's Republican parties. And today we're talking with Linda Curtis, candidate for the Towns County Sheriff. Linda, the very first question that comes to mind is, why you? Why Linda Curtis for sheriff?
Well, first off, I care deeply for this community. I see where we are, where we have the potential to go, and I'm really excited about that. Although I'm semi-retired, I still have the desire and the energy to protect and serve. I look forward to the election next week. I want the best possible person as sheriff, and right now that best possible person is me.
That's why you for sheriff, because you're the best person.
I'm the best person for that job.
All right. So let's take it into the next step. What's the very first thing that Sheriff Curtis is going to do? You walk into your office that first day, you are now the sheriff, Towns County. What's the first thing you do?
Well, I have several priorities, and I'm sure I'll be working on some of them at the same time. Familiarizing myself with the day-to-day operations of the sheriff's office is important to me. Getting familiar with the Towns County Sheriff's Office policies and procedures. I want to meet with each one of the employees, both sworn and civilian. That's important to me. There are many things that are, important and that are going to be on my to-do list. The sheriff's office is a business just like any other business. So I need to evaluate. We have budget constrictions we have to bear in mind. So we need to just if you were going to buy a house or a business, I have to evaluate what needs to be done, what needs to be fixed, what doesn't need our attention. What's important, what's a priority, and how much is it going to cost me to fix this? That's high on my list of things to do. Drugs are a problem in Towns County. They're a problem across our nation right now. So that's also on the list of things to do. We've been fighting this war on drugs as long as I can remember, before I started law enforcement. Traditionally, we go after the users because we get most of our drugs from traffic stops. I would like to shift that enforcement a little bit and focus more on the dealers, those that are bringing these illegal substances across our county line. We do not have the monetary funding to have our own drug task force. So it's important to me that we develop some kind of a city-county investigative bureau. And that's something I would need to talk to my fellow sheriffs about in other counties and see if we can come up with something where we can assist each other in knocking out the drugs in this county.
Well, and it seems to me that, you talked about them bringing drugs into Towns County. It seems to me that's probably not a one-way flow. We probably have drugs that are coming out of here going elsewhere, which means that communication that you're talking about building with the other sheriffs benefits them as well. So it's not a one-way communication.
That's right. And again, the budget, we're all under, the sheriff for White County, Union County, Clay County, Rabun County, they're all under the same budget constraints I'm under. So my idea is that we each take a deputy or an officer and we make a bureau out of that. And you know what, 1 week we focus on Towns County, and then the next week we go and we rotate and we focus on Rabun County. And the good thing about that is when you have a single drug officer, it's just a matter of time before everybody in that county knows who he is. Mm-hmm. So if we do a type of an investigation bureau with our fellow, sheriff's office, we can rotate, those deputies. So in 6 months, we can rotate with Rabun can rotate with Clay, and that'll give us a few years before we're starting over again with those, being familiar with those deputies.
And I can see the, I'll call it a synergistic effect in the relation, because while you're talking about that dealer, you just talked about him coming across county lines. If we're able to bust that dealer and put him or her in jail, you not only have a positive effect for Towns County, but also for Rabun.
That's
and
right.
for Union. And so by all of you coming together and building that kind of relationship, you're benefiting all 3 or more, or 4 or 5 counties, actually.
That's right. And the intelligence that we're going to get out of that, when Towns County sits down and talks to Rabun County and says, hey, you know what, we've got a red Durango that we've had a problem with, and Clay County says, hey, you know what, we've had complaints of that same red Durango, and then White County says, well, you know what, they're trafficking in our county too. So the fact that we're all going to get together and we're going to be able to share that information is going to be a priceless tool.
I'm going to take you somewhere you didn't expect me to take you right this second, and that is budgeting in the building that drug bureau. It's going to cost some money. You talked about budgetary constraints, but you also have experience in grant writing.
That's right.
I need to assume, no, I don't need to, I have to assume that there are grants out there for fighting the drug war. Can you give me any kind of indication how the Towns County Sheriff's Office could benefit by grants and the sheriff having experience in grant writing?
That's right. Grants are extremely beneficial, especially when you're restricted on your budget and you have these types of issues that we're dealing with. That's why if I can just take one of my deputies and make him part of a team, there are a lot of grants out there. There unfortunately aren't grants like they used to be, but there are a lot of them out there. But you have to match those grants. A lot of people think that just because there's a $1 million grant out there for 2 drug agents and 2 cars, you have to meet the qualifications for that grant. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I need to look at. Again, I said when I got into office, I would look at the day-to-day operations, our policies and procedures, and then we probably need to look at the grants that are going to benefit us and see if we fit those. And if we don't, we need to find out how much is it going to cost us to do that.
Sure. And now this is maybe my naivete, but I would think that if you've got 5 counties coming together, there's a much better chance that you're going to be able to fulfill the criteria for that grant.
That's right.
That having those 5 counties come together means maybe we'll get more grants than if we were just to go forward as Towns County.
Possibly. And if the grant, let's just say the grant says, you need to make this X amount of arrests per month. Mm-hmm. Let's say that's the requirement of one of those grants. If we are part of a county team with other counties, our chances of making those arrests are going to be higher, and meeting those requirements for grants are going to be better as we're part of a team of surrounding counties. So yes, it's going to benefit us, it's going to benefit them, and it's going to give us maybe some of the qualifications we need in order to qualify for these types of grants.
Good. Why are you so passionate about all of this?
Well, I know I saw firsthand how community policing changed the face of the agency I worked with. It's unbelievable the change that makes when we start communicating, with our citizens, our residents, even our visitors. Just turn on the TV right now. Pick any news channel that you want. Most of our country at this moment thinks all cops are bad cops, and that's simply just not true. Mm-hmm. But it becomes the responsibility now of every chief and every sheriff to get out there and start repairing that damage. Communication, proper, unbiased, professional, transparent communication is more important right now than ever.
I like it. I like it a lot. And because there are so many officials out there, whether they're in law enforcement or just in politics, who have sound bites that the camera goes on, they look at the camera, they have a sound bite. The transparency element is key. This is John talking. Transparency is the key to gaining the trust of the people. And that's another one of those things that I have heard you say.
And accountability. I can't Monday morning quarterback anything or what happened in Minnesota, but sometimes when we get out there and we are transparent, we're human. I'm going to make mistakes as sheriff. My deputies are going to make mistakes as sheriffs because we are human. But accountability and transparency. Hey, you know what? We made a mistake. And this is what we're going to do about it. This is the consequences that my deputies are going to do, that we're going to have. They're going to follow policies and procedures and what we expect of them. But accountability and transparency to the public that we're dealing with this sometimes keeps some of these, riots, because people don't understand. They become confused, and they don't understand that even though that officer is going to go through an internal affairs, you may not hear anything for 4 or 6 months. And we need to be better at letting them know, hey, we're dealing with this problem right now.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you have you've got some experience in policy review.
Yes, I do.
And so, that I'm encouraged to know that with that experience, you'll be able to move into the position, review those policy manuals, and say, I agree with that. Oh, that's great. I love that a lot.
Yes.
This one we need to do a little tweaking with. And with your experience in policy review, those things can happen. And I would expect that the result would have a positive effect across the entire county, because if you're improving the policies, how your people interact with Joe Bag of Donuts who gets pulled over for a taillight being out, that policy that you've set forward is going to have a really good effect on the community. I'm looking forward to that a lot.
Thank you. It is, there are some very important responsibilities of the sheriff. I know we've heard Sheriff Clinton talk numerous times about our constitutional rights, but equally important for sheriff is a responsibility is that it's our job to keep the city safe from criminal and civil liability, and we do that by making sure that our policies are up to date. That they tend to deal with the types of situations that we're facing today. Not 12 years. Law enforcement is completely different, even than when Sheriff Clinton took office. It changes so rapidly every day. And that's why I said one of the first things I need to do is familiar myself with the day-to-day operations of our sheriff's office and our policies and procedures. I want to get back to if you see something, say something. Although we are deputies in the sheriff's office, we like to know everyone. Mm-hmm. There are 11,800 to 12,000 residents in this county. Nobody knows your neighborhood better than you do.
Sure.
And no matter how minor you think it is to you, we may be looking for that car. We may want to know that group that's going into that house every night. So no matter how minor that you may think something is, we want to know. I want to know. So if you see something, say something.
And that's where your community policing comes into play.
Exactly. Neighborhood watch, business watch, those are kind of my babies. When I worked in drugs, I would go to every neighborhood watch meeting and I would sit in the back and I would take notes, because this neighborhood that gives me a description of a car or a subject, I go to the next neighborhood watch meeting and lo and behold, they got the same problem with the same car. Mm-hmm. And that's how we start communicating better and knocking out some of the drugs and some of the problems that we have in these neighborhoods.
How do we, and I agree that community policing or neighborhood watches, whatever term we want to use with it, is vital to get information to the law enforcement folks so we can put down, and I'll say specifically the drug issue around here. How do we kickstart that program in this county?
Well, I'm going to have to start. Well, I have an open door policy. I already have several emails from different residents in different neighborhoods. I know our hot spots right now. We can start with them. The town meeting that I'm going to have in the first year, every couple of months, will give me a chance to hear and find out which neighborhoods we need to focus on this first year and get captains for those areas. Not only is it beneficial for what I'm hearing from these neighborhoods, but they get a chance to vent their complaints. Some people I have the same car that speeds through here every single day. without those neighborhood watch meetings, unless they come in or call, I won't know about those, and unfortunately, we can't fix it if we don't know about it. Yeah.
Good. Switching gears a little bit, I know that there are folks out there who recognize you from your 2016 run for sheriff.
Yeah.
You ran as an independent in 16. Now in 20, you're running for as a Republican. Why the switch?
Well, I didn't just jump on the Republican Party because I needed the support and the votes. The day I was 18, I ran down, registered to vote, and checked that box for Ronald Reagan. My family, my church was a big influence, excuse me, on my party at that time. Very seldom have I swayed away and voted otherwise, with the exception of one of my sheriffs in the county that I lived in. He was a Democrat. I did believe he was the best person for the job. But other than that, I have stayed loyal to the Republican Party. Pro-life. I'm pro-guns, pro-Second Amendment, pro-First Amendment, and pro-free market capitalism. I am just about as Republican as you come. However, the experience of running independent had some benefits because I was able to hear what our residents that are Democrats had to say, what their concerns were, as well as the Republicans. And being an independent let me hear both parties. So if the position of sheriff became nonpartisan tomorrow, I would be okay with that.
Yeah.
I protect and serve everybody. Your political affiliation doesn't change my job.
Mm-hmm. Great to hear you say that. Great to hear you say that.
It's true.
So that being the case, what is it that separates candidate Curtis from all those other candidates? I mean, we're not talking about Sheriff Clinton because he's not going to seek re-election, but there are 4 other folks who want that same job that you want. What separates you from them?
Well, I know all 4 of the candidates. Some I know better than others. Some I would consider friends of mine. I can tell you that one thing we all have in common is we care about and we're concerned about the future of Towns County. We care about what's going to happen with the sheriff's office, and I believe that's a common goal that we have. However, right now I'm focusing on what Linda Curtis is going to do. Mm-hmm. I think one of the best assets I bring to the table is my outside exposure. I come from a very high volume, high call, high pressure, high crime area. Again, does it make me a better cop? Not necessarily. Does it make me better prepared to handle a crisis and an emergency? I think it does. 2 of my colleagues were killed while I was on duty with them, Deputy John Cregan and Deputy Jean Gregory. Those nights, those evenings and incidents will be etched in my mind forever. I still remember dispatch calling Deputy Jean Gregory over the radio. He had been shot and was laying on the carport floor, and we could not extract him out of there. And I still remember them calling his number. Again, I think it makes me better prepared to handle things that maybe our other candidates haven't been exposed to, that level of crime and pressure. And it certainly is going to be a benefit and something I can bring to the table. Mm-hmm. Community policing, neighborhood watch, business watch, grant writing. I was part of our hiring board, our disciplinary action board, our EPIC committee, and that's just to name a few.
Oh, EPIC committee. What's that?
Oh, well, our city had a beautification grant that came in, mm-hmm. and we were able, a few of us officers were able to sit in there and give our kind of a crime prevention to environmental design. Our mall had these great big planters and these big landscaping timbers around them, and they were like 12 feet tall. So anything that was parked around there, we couldn't see. We had these great big fences up between the parking lots. And, we all sat down and said, well, the reason these cars are getting stolen from there is because we can't see it. Nobody can see those vulnerable areas. So that EPIC committee gave us a chance to sit down before they started building and say, hey, you know what? It's not really, it's a crime haven if you put that building facing that way with that big fence against the highway. So that was some really good experience right there.
Okay. And one of the other things that you've talked about when you and I have spoken, and I've seen it in some of the print, is a focus on investigations. I don't mean that we're weak on investigations, but what is your focus on for investigations?
Well, one thing is every call that we go to, burglaries, thefts, we need to fingerprint. We carried a fingerprint kit in our car, and there were many times when I didn't think I could get a print, and I would take it and I would submit it, and lo and behold, that print would come back. As a matter of fact, we had, I believe it was a rash of stolen cars out of a local gym, like a Gold's Gym. People would go in there and work out for 2 hours, so it was a great place for kids that wanted to go break into cars. And I was out there one night for 4 or 5 hours, and my zone partner's like, what's taking you so long? I said, I'm going to stay out here all night till I get a print off this car, because it just kept happening. Well, we submitted that print, and you know what? About a month later, another police department, Kissimmee, called me and said, that print that you got is a subject from a rape that we've been looking for years. So we were able to match those prints up. So you know what? Just because a hubcap was stolen, try to fingerprint for it. First of all, it makes, the victim feel like we're doing something about it, and we are. But if somebody has burglarized your home and they've been in there for an hour, they've had to touch something.
Sure.
Fingerprint for it. We need to take that extra step if we're going to be better.
Gotcha. When you and I spoke before, we had a conversation about the schools and churches and possible violence in those scenes, in those areas. What are your plans for addressing that sort of issue?
Well, when we send our children to school, we expect those to be safe zones, as they should be. So one of the first things I'm going to do is meet with our school resource officers. We have 2 of them, and meet with Dr. Barong. They know that school better than anyone. They know the weaknesses and the strengths. I need to know those also. Next, I'm going to meet with our Marty, who is the director of our 911 communications and dispatch. Minute to minute isn't good enough for me. We need second by second transmission. When our deputies are on their way to that school in reference to a shooting, while they're on their way there, we need second by second updates. So one thing that I would like to try to do as a goal is, again, I have to meet with our communications and find out, and I'm sure we have budget restraints on this too. I want cameras in those hallways. When our deputies are on their way there, I want dispatch to be able to look at that camera and say, they're in hallway 2, and this is the description of him, because we don't have time when we get there to hear that. We need to know that while we're on our way. As soon as I get those steps in order, I'm going to establish a command post. When something does happen at the school, Hiawassee Police Department, Young Harris College, Rabun County, White County, they're going to know where that command post is set up, and we're going to go from there. And then training will begin twice a year.
I'm encouraged, because that's one of the terrifying elements for just those of us who are general public, is the potential for violence, for an active shooter in either the school or in one of our places of worship.
That's right.
And to know that you already have a plan in place to go forward, to know that we're going to be ready in case that happens is comforting.
We will be ready. I have an operational plan that's partially written. Again, there are other things I need to know. I need to know, I have to talk to dispatch. Again, I have to talk to our school resource officers and find out what is the best scenario. And then we're going to finish that operational plan. We are going to train on that twice a year.
Mm-hmm. And it seems to me that if you're going to have law enforcement responding from Rabun and Union counties, I mean, they've already got things in place as well. So that's one of those, when you're writing, I have written policy manuals, and I know that plagiarism is a wonderful thing.
Yes, it
because there's no reason for us to reinvent the wheel.
That's right.
If
That's
if
right.
the sheriff over in Rabun has got something in place that we can use, that's wonderful. I think that we're about ready for you to talk to the people of Towns County.
Okay.
You need to tell them, I mean, you started with, I asked you, why Linda Curtis for sheriff? And you said, because I'm the best person.
That's right.
I think they need to hear that from you. You need to look them in the eye and convince them that come time for swearing in, that you're the one who should be taking that oath.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the Towns County GOP for this opportunity and the exposure that they've given me in my candidacy for sheriff. I can't express the appreciation and honor, that I feel for those of you that have supported me. A simple thank you doesn't seem like enough, but thank you. It really means a lot to me. There is no doubt in my mind that the experience and the education and the exposure that I've had puts me in the best position today to move this sheriff's office forward. It's really not about me. It's not about my opponents. This is about you. It's not about slapping on a gold badge and driving around in a patrol car. This isn't about ego. This is about building and making the best, safest, full-service sheriff's office that you deserve. So get out there on June 9th and vote for a better tomorrow. Vote Linda Curtis for sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you.